So can we talk about burnout? In an industry that seems to have different rules about what is normal hours, and we have a drive to do better and be better, how do you approach this in the workplace? How do you push your manager to help you get that work-life balance and even ask for personal leave to repair? So let's almost treat this as like a real question, because I mean, I'm sure it has been a question for you, Maria, of like people in your team who may have experienced this or in different places. Like what sort of advice would you give in terms of how they can respond to a situation like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question, and it is a real problem. I just want to acknowledge that before we get into it. And I think our industry 100% operates differently to other industries. And I think, personally, I'd like to see that change. And, I know you would too, Andy, and you, Katie. There's people that are sort of hoping and, trying to change things. I think it is important to speak up and to let people know that you do need a little bit of space. I respect that as a manager, and look, sometimes I have to ask that myself for that time. My big sort of learning for this year, or my challenge I've set myself for this year, is self-responsibility, and what that means to me is learning to sort of, I guess, put myself first, because in reality, you can't be the best employee, the best mum, the best friend, the best partner if you're not your best self. So you can be doing your boss, your workmate, your creative partner a favor by taking a little bit of time out, because that might be what you need to come back and I guess enjoy your job and be a better you. So it's actually not. It's not a bad thing to do, and it's something I respect someone asking.
There's also, I mean, I think there's a lot of stuff around burnout as well, which is people think that burnout is just related to hours and the amount of work that gets done. But I mean, you can work that number of hours and be great and happy. It's also other things, and I think it goes back to what you were talking about earlier, Katie, around what brings you joy. And I think, we've seen in the mentally healthy research that one of the big things that can lead to mental health challenges for people, and that are then inevitably linked to burnout, is finding meaning in the work that you're doing. And that doesn't always have to be like the meaning of like, who are you doing it for, or like, what is the project trying to achieve? But even like, are you learning anything? Or are you feeling like you're progressing, or can you sort of look back at what you've achieved? And that's like a big part of burnout. It says, if you're doing the hours and you feel like there's no meaning in your job, that's really when everything sort of gets to the point where it's almost helpless. How do you tackle burnout with clients, Katie?
Well, first of all, it's identifying the real root causality of it. So I'll use a personal example. My own family of origin, I learned that, and I think a lot of us can probably relate to this, doing is good and being is bad. If you distill it right down to the absolute core of the belief, that was it. So what does that belief lead to? Me pushing myself to the umpteenth degree in all things, in work, in relationships. And so whilst some of it was externally real, a lot of it was also internally charged and led. And so if I had a client come to me and say, I'm feeling completely overwhelmed, I would want to go on that journey of excavation, which essentially is looking at, okay, on a surface level, this is what we think it is. How do we get to know that a little bit better? What is it in you that is also feeding into amplifying, adding to that? And how do we begin to shift that? And in some cases, it may be that this isn't the right industry for you. But in some cases, it may be a practical change, and in some cases it may be something that you can shift in you to the energy that you are bringing to it that actually helps achieve the result, even though on the surface it may look very similar. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. And I think it's kind of interesting to think about what could be seen as a difficult situation, actually that situation teaching you something about yourself or giving you an opportunity to change. That does shift your perspective somewhat, doesn't it?
Look, this is probably, a lot of my answers have all been about the same thing, which is turning the eye inward. And that's because that's the work I do. That's what psychotherapy is. It is that journey of getting to know why you're responding the way you're responding, because of your sight of how you're wired the way that you're wired. And the greatest catalyst for change, I believe, is inside of yourself, because I can't control the world around me. I can't control, my relationships and my jobs and everything, what everybody else is doing. But I can kind of, through greater awareness, hold myself in a stronger position through it. And there's a lot of freedom in that, because you get to see the truth of why you feel the way you do. And it's not always outside of yourself. In fact, I would argue more often than not, a lot of it is housed within.
I think there's another part here, which is how to ask your manager. I think burnout overall is a topic that is very current right now, and our mental health overall is a topic that's very current right now as well. And I think, how do you have that conversation with your boss? I know we had someone asked a question similar to this when we did an event in Melbourne, and they had said that very quickly, and I think you actually mentioned it then, Katie, that the answer was, well, suck it up. This is the industry we're in, and maybe it's not right for you. And I guess I would like, and I know I wouldn't do that now, but I would like to see that there's a few more solutions before we get to that point for that person. And I think, there are things that you can start to do and improve in terms of the way that you ask the question. So often if you just come to your manager who's got a million things going on with hey, I'm burnt out, and so fix it for me, it's very difficult, and your manager and your business can't necessarily fix that for you and take it out of your hands. But what they can do is work on it with you. And so if you're actually going, hey, this is how I'm feeling and this is what I'm experiencing, I think these are some of the things that might be causing it. And can I work on a solution with you is a really fair question to ask, and to try and work on this together, which might start to head off that kind of response of, well, this is it, this is what you got yourself into, and if you don't like it, you might be better off elsewhere.
Yeah, and sorry, I feel I need to clarify that. What I meant by that was, again, as you attune to what you need and what serves you, it might be that, you want flexibility. You don't want the commitment of 5 days in office. It might be. So what I meant by that was less about, more about, again, just knowing yourself as an individual. And then you're able to hold that in kind of the wider balance of, some things which are more fixed. And then you can use that as rich information to do the right thing for yourself.
Yeah, definitely.